Please subscribe to my channel. Folks often claim that certain individuals enter the world surrounded by affection, whereas others chase after mere fragments of it throughout their existence. I'm Stacey Ellis, aged 28, and within my household, affection resembled a balance that perpetually leaned away from me. My sibling Brent, the cherished star, the gem of the reeds, pursued law with an impeccable grin, an ideal path ahead, and guardians who virtually cheered at his every breath. As for me, I lingered as the silent figure in the background, the overlooked one mending flaws that nobody else cared to notice. Why aren't you more similar to him? That was their go-to phrase, each syllable carved into me like a blunt knife, deliberate and profound. Yet I endured it all. The contrast, the reprimands, the quiet. I persuaded myself that with sufficient effort, greater labor, and more generosity, they'd eventually notice me, perhaps even express pride. However, that moment never arrived. Upon Brent's engagement reveal, I figured this could be my opportunity. They assigned me all the duties, every chore, every bit of accountability. The whole affair depended on me, and I accepted it eagerly. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was the path to gaining their endorsement. But optimism can be merciless. The evening prior to the ceremony, we gathered at the dining table reviewing last-minute arrangements. Brent desired exotic blooms, a performing ensemble, bubbly from France, the sort of spectacle only wealth could secure. "You'll handle that, won't you?" he inquired nonchalantly, heaping mashed potatoes onto his dish. I responded no. My tone wavered, but I uttered it. I lacked the funds. That was sufficient. My parents' expressions solidified simultaneously, resembling one entity staring via dual gazes. "The finest present you might offer your sibling," my mother stated icily, "is to depart this household permanently." The atmosphere didn't merely halt. It ceased. Even Brent paused his eating. My heartbeat thundered in my head. I refrained from weeping or disputing. I shifted from the table, rose, and exited. My vehicle keys rattled in my unsteady grasp. The door shutting after me echoed like a conclusive period concluding a lengthy, unjust paragraph. The following day marked his marriage celebration. All appeared radiant outwardly. Tunes, blossoms, chuckles, until everything shattered in moments. But that instant of destruction arrives subsequently. To grasp how it fractured, you must comprehend the preceding events. Several years before that meal, I operated as an independent marketer harboring an ambition grander than those nearby could imagine. I'd recently secured a deal worth $40,000 from a local grocery network. It represented a milestone, my stride toward autonomy, toward demonstrating I could construct something independently without my relatives' consent. Then arrived the telephone conversation that altered all. My parents' food shop in Erie, Pennsylvania, the clan enterprise, teetered on failure. Debts accumulating, providers vanishing, patrons diminishing. My mother's tone on the call fractured like interference. My father, rigid, dignified, unyielding, appeared diminished beyond anything I'd witnessed. "We're facing total loss, Stacy," my dad murmured softly. "Please." Thus, I performed what I consistently did for them. I relinquished all for their benefit. I terminated my agreement. I contacted the grocery representative, expressed regret amid sobs, and abandoned the endeavor that would have launched me. Subsequently, I directed every ounce of vigor into salvaging their outlet. I revamped their promotion entirely. Vibrant pamphlets, reduced price initiatives, appealing broadcast spots, even initial online entries that I composed on a partially faulty portable computer. I remained awake beyond midnight, adjusting finances, reaching out to providers, arranging neighborhood distributions. In a few months, the wonder occurred. Shoppers began returning. Racks replenished. The cash machines buzzed, and obligations decreased. We regained vitality. The evening we settled the final significant invoice. I believed they'd express appreciation now. My parents summoned a household gathering, and I entered the cooking area beaming with expectation. Rather than thanks, I received disloyalty concealed in courtesy. My mother interlocked her fingers and grinned, as if conveying positive updates. "Your brother's assuming control of the shop," she announced. "He possesses the aptitude for it. He's an attorney. My father avoided my gaze. It's optimal. I gazed at them, immobile. Brent, who hadn't shifted one container or dialed once, positioned himself at the entrance, grinning slyly. You managed all right, Stacy, he remarked, his manner oozing that conceited dominance that only the preferred master flawlessly. All right, not thank you, not we're proud of you, just all right. That evening, I returned to the workspace I'd set up in the storage area. My workstation, my portable computer, and lingered in the dimness, fixating on the illuminated display protector. All I'd sought was a morsel of acknowledgement. My spirit contorted beneath its burden, but I remained mute. I continued laboring late, filling racks, refreshing promotional drives, fixing what they damaged. I assured myself, perhaps next week, perhaps next month, they'd regard me the way they idolized Brent. Each dawn before daylight, I arrived at the shop. Each evening I departed final. Their operation endured due to me. But when kin acquaintances came by, my parents boasted about Brent's robust guidance abilities. I'd remain there clutching a notepad and grin, unseen. The sole individual who perceived the reality was Nathan Todd, my closest companion since university. We'd convene at an all-night eatery following my turns, the neon radiance bouncing off chilled brew. Stacy, he uttered one evening, shaking his head. You're destroying yourself for folks who'll never recognize you. I dismissed it with laughter then, but I recalled his expression. He viewed me the way I'd perpetually desire my parents to, like somebody deserving. Nonetheless, optimism is tenacious. I couldn't cease trusting that eventually they'd ultimately declare it, that I sufficed. Months evolved into years. The shop prospered. My concepts continued succeeding, and my relatives' view of me remained unaltered. When Brent disclosed his nuptials, my parents wasted no time. Stacy, we realize you'll manage all. No inquiry, merely anticipation. I was contracting independently once more, scarcely managing expenses, but I agreed. I aimed to demonstrate one final instance that I could fashion something lovely solo, even if it required tapping into the scant reserves I possessed. $10,000 evaporated on down payments, locations, food providers. I convinced myself it would justify it merely to hear thank you. I crafted each element. Selections featuring grilled poultry and seasonal greens, vivid focal points, creased agendas produced manually. I verified agreements twice, negotiated with pastry makers, contacted sellers until my device power expired. Then Brent concluded basic wasn't adequate. During morning meal one day, he browsed images on his device, hardly glancing at me. I desire orchids, authentic ones, brought in, and a chamber group from Pittsburgh. Lindsay observed them at a different ceremony. Arrange it, Brent. The funds I began. He interrupted me. You're perpetually skimping, Stacy. Exert more. I gazed at him, then at my parents positioned opposite the table, anticipating them to support me. My mother merely assented with a nod. My father didn't even lift his eyes from the periodical. Somewhere profoundly within, something inside me fractured neatly, nearly soundlessly. I had accomplished all. Forfeited positions, funds, rest, and aspirations to render them proud. But in their perspective, I remained a stand-in, an instrument they employed until Brent required the attention anew. That evening, as I creased ceremony agendas manually, I comprehended something straightforward and crushing. Regardless of how much I contributed, they would never perceive me. And an individual unseen for two extended, ultimately masters how to disappear deliberately. Arrange it. My mom, Joyce, interjected, sipping her brew. He's correct. This is his occasion. Don't spoil it. My dad, Jeffrey, simply assented, turning pages in his periodical. Their statements hurt, but I persisted, believing perhaps an impeccable ceremony would ultimately gain their admiration. I labored late evenings corresponding with sellers, modifying schemes. I located a nearby ensemble ready to perform for reduced rates reserved ordinary roses rather than brought-in blooms. Each selection was measured to equate Brent's request with actuality, but he continued urging. One midday he phoned, demanding a famous disc jockey from Cleveland. It's merely a couple thousand additional, he stated as if insignificant. I recalled him I was financing half the ceremony personally. Solve it, he barked, disconnecting. Joyce eavesdropped and shook her head. Why can't you simply fulfill what he desires? She remarked. Jeffrey peeked up, grumbling. Don't spoil this for him. I felt disregarded, like my endeavors were imperceptible. I'd devoted hours organizing, forfeiting my personal ventures to realize their vision. Yet each phase they critiqued. At a kin midday meal, Joyce highlighted an error in the invite sample I'd presented her. Sloppy, she remarked, discarding it. Brent grinned slyly, appending, classic Stacy. I wished to retort sharply to inform them how much I was bearing, but I held back. I continued refining the placement diagram, verifying shipments, hoping they'd recognize the labor beneath it. Nathan observed the strain it inflicted. We convened at a brew spot in Erie one dusk, and I released frustration about Brent's ceaseless requests. He desires a bespoke frozen carving now, I stated, weary. Nathan inclined a head, his tone resolute. Stacy, you're contorting excessively for individuals who don't value you. Defend yourself. I dismissed it, mixing my brew. If I succeed in this, perhaps they'll ultimately perceive me. He shook his head, doubtful. They won't. You're valued beyond their endorsement. But I couldn't halt. I persisted, phoning the site daily, guaranteeing the fabrics were ideal. The dessert requested. I even disbursed an additional down payment to obtain a reserve power source, just in case. My reserves diminished, but I assured myself it justified it. If I could provide Brent's ideal day, perhaps Joyce would grin at me once. Maybe Jeffrey would utter something besides, don't spoil it. I invested all into the ceremony, trusting it was my opportunity to radiate. Brent's requests continued intensifying. At one juncture, he messaged me a connection to a premium food service, demanding caviar starters. I phoned him, clarifying it would exceed the funds. You're humiliating me, he stated, his tone frigid. Joyce eavesdropped when I stopped by the residence, and she exhaled. Just fulfill what he requested, Stacy. It's not that difficult. Jeffrey assented, not lifting eyes from his screen. Their disregard scorched, but I continued laboring, modifying schemes, hoping the ceremony would alter how they viewed me. The evening before the ceremony, I positioned at our kin's eating table in Erie, the atmosphere dense with strain. My mom had prepared her standard roast, but nobody consumed. Brent reclined in his seat, browsing his device while his betrothed, Lindsay, nibbled at her dish. My dad sipped his wine, scarcely peeking up. I'd devoted months organizing Brent's ceremony, investing $10,000 of my reserves into it. But tonight sensed distinct, like a tempest approaching. I prepared myself, wishing for a calm night. Brent shattered the quiet. Stacy, we must enhance Theo Manu, he stated, not glancing up. Include lobster portions and that aged bubbly from Napa Valley. Oh, and employ that photographer from Pittsburgh, the one who captured the governor's gala. I gazed at him, my utensil immobile. Lobster portion bubbly costing $500 per container. A photographer billing $3,000 daily. I'd already extended my reserves to the maximum, covering half the ceremony's expense. Brent, I can't, I stated, maintaining my tone even. I've already disbursed for all. The site, the ensemble, the blooms. There's no funds remaining, he sneered, hurling his device on the table. You're always so stingy, Stacy. This is my ceremony. Arrange it. Joyce set her glass down firmly, her eyes constricting. He's correct, she stated. This is a once-in-a-lifetime occasion. Why are you being so self-centered? Jeffrey peeked up, his tone rough. Don't spoil this for your sibling. My torso constricted, their statements slicing deeper than anticipated. I'd contributed all, my time, my funds, my vigor, and they still perceived me as the issue. I attempted to clarify. I've expended $10,000 of my personal reserves. The funds are exhausted. Lobster and a renowned photographer aren't feasible. Brent rolled his eyes, inclining toward Lindsay. See, I informed you she'd cut corners on us. Lindsay remained mute, evading my look. Joyce crossed her arms, her tone piercing. You've perpetually been this way, Stacy, never rising when it counts. Jeffrey assented, adding, Brent merits superior to your lackluster attempt. Lackluster, I'd labored evenings, negotiated with sellers, rendered their fantasy ceremony viable. But to them, it was insignificant. I retorted, my voice elevating. I've covered half this ceremony. I've fulfilled all you requested. I can't continue investing funds I lack into this. Brent grinned slyly, shaking his head. Then perhaps you shouldn't participate at all, he stated. Joyce inclined ahead, her eyes frigid. You know what, Stacy? The finest present for your sibling ceremony is you disappearing from this household eternally. The space fell silent. Jeffrey didn't react, just fixated on his dish. Lindsay fidgeted uneasily, uttering nothing. My heart throbbed, their statements resounding like a strike. Disappear. After all I'd accomplished, I desired to yell to enumerate each forfeiture I'd made. But their expressions, Joyce's stare, Jeffrey's apathy. Brent's conceited smirk informed me it wouldn't signify. They'd selected him once more. I rose, my chair grating the ground. Fine, I stated, my tone subdued but steadfast. If that's what you desire. I seized my bag, my keys clinking in my grasp. Joyce shouted after me. Don't create a spectacle, Stacy. But I was finished heating. I exited the entrance, closing forcefully behind me, the noise keen and conclusive. Outdoors, the chilly, eerie breeze struck my face, but I sensed a blaze within. I'd contributed them all. My reserves, my time, my optimism, and they'd hurled it back at me. Positioned in my vehicle, I clutched the driving wheel, my thoughts rushing. They desired me absent. Fine. But I wasn't going to diminish softly. I devoted months constructing their ideal day, only to be informed I was the issue. No further. I wasn't certain what I'd do subsequently, but one matter was evident. I was finished being their mat. I ignited the motor, my determination solidifying. Tomorrow, they'd witness what occurred when I ceased bearing their load. The next dawn, I awoke with their statements still searing in my ears. I positioned on my bed, fixating on my device. My reserves account program active. $10,000. My whole safety net remained bound in down payments for Brent's ceremony. Food providers, flower arrangers. The ensemble all compensated for my funds to render their day ideal. But following last evening's meal, their request for me to disappear eternally altered all. I wasn't going to permit them to trample me any longer. I began contacting sellers. First, the food provider. Cancel the request, I stated, my tone even. I'm withdrawing the down payment. The lady on the connection paused, inquiring about fines, but I disregarded. Next, the flower arranger. No roses, no focal points, I informed her. Return my compensation. The ensemble was final. They had already processed my payment, but I requested a reversal. By midday, I'd recovered most of my $10,000, leaving the ceremony barren. No blooms, no tunes, no meals. I didn't experience remorse, only determination. They desired me out. I'd provide them a ceremony they'd never erase. By midday, disorder erupted at the site. Attendees arrived to vacant surfaces. No ensemble performing, no arrangements visible. Lindsay, Brent's betrothed, stood in her attire, astonished as Kin murmured in bewilderment. Brent, flushed, yelled at the site personnel who lacked responses. Joyce phoned me, her tone piercing through my message system. Stacy, what have you accomplished? You've destroyed all. Jeffrey left a communication. 2. His manner frigid. You're a shame to this household. I didn't respond. Their charges didn't unsettle me. I'd endured sufficient. That dusk, Brent resorted to an internet discussion, a local Erie bulletin board humming with rumors. My sibling undermined my ceremony. He submitted his terms, oozing with malice. She's envious, vindictive, and demolished the finest day of my existence. He depicted me as the antagonist, asserting I'd intentionally sunk his major instant. Responses accumulated, some from locals I'd known for ages, labeling me self-centered, deranged. Joyce contributed, responding to Brent's submission. She's perpetually been problematic. Jeffrey didn't submit, but I knew he concurred. Their falsehoods propagated rapidly, distorting the facts to preserve dignity. I positioned in my residence, perusing the submissions, my abdomen churning. Portion of me desired to counter, to reveal how I'd financed half their fantasy ceremony. How they requested more than I could provide. But what was the purpose? They'd never concede they erred. Instead, I activated my portable computer and began hunting for residences in Asheville, North Carolina. I toured once, adored the serene peaks, the new beginning it offered. Erie contained nothing for me any longer, just a household that viewed me as expendable. I placed a call to a property agent inquiring about leases. Something modest, I stated. I'm beginning anew. Nathan visited that evening, his expression stern. They're defaming you digitally, he stated, displaying me Brent's submission on his device. You all right? I assented, though my hands trembled. I'm finished with them, he informed him. He didn't urge, just positioned with me as I assembled a few containers, sealed volumes, my portable computer. You're tougher than they realize, he stated before departing. His statements lingered with me, a minor stabilizer in the turmoil. By midnight, I'd reserved a One Direction transport pass to Asheville for the following week. The ceremony's downfall was on them. They'd urged me excessively. Joyce's message system replayed in my thoughts, her tone accusing me for their humiliation. Jeffrey's frigid manner resounded, tagging me a shame. Brent's submission with its falsehoods hurt most severely. But I wasn't remaining to combat their story. I'd contributed them all. My funds, my endeavor, my optimism, and they discarded it. Now I was selecting myself. Weeks following the turmoil, I stood in my compact, eerie workspace, assembling the final of my items. I'd constructed a humble independent marketing operation over the years, a supplementary pursuit that generated just sufficient to sustain me. It wasn't extensive, just a lease space with a workstation, a machine, and several customer documents. But it was mine. I resolved to dispose of it. A nearby firm proposed $25,000 for my customer roster and agreements. I endorsed the documents without delay, the writing instrument steady in my grasp. That funds, plus the $10,000 I'd retrieved from the ceremony, was my escape pass. I also placed a tougher call. For years, I'd invested myself into my household's food shop, first with the promotional drive that rescued it, then with a $5,000 contribution from my reserves to maintain it operating. I'd overseen stock bargain with providers, maintained the records equilibrated, but following their disloyalty, it was finished. I reached the financial institution and retracted my contribution every unit. I didn't phone Joyce or Jeffrey to alert them. They'd made their selection when they instructed me to disappear. Without my funds and oversight, the shop's fissures, ones I'd repaired for years, would divide broadly. By the month's conclusion, I was on a transport to Asheville, North Carolina. My possessions accommodated in 2 travel bags, a tire, a portable computer, a few volumes. The peaks appeared outside the pane, their tranquil assurance drawing me ahead. I leased a modest residence centrally. Nothing elaborate, just a single sleeping with a vista of the Blue Ridge summits. The initial evening, I positioned on the empty ground consuming delivery, sensing lighter than I had in ages. Erie was rearward me. Joyce, Jeffrey, Brent, and their malice, too. The kin shop didn't endure long after I departed. Nathan messaged me reports, his communications direct. Providers ceased supplying when compensation delayed. Shoppers reduced, repelled by vacant racks. Brent, who'd been granted the controls, bungled every choice. Joyce attempted to intervene, but she couldn't manage the operations I'd handled. Jeffrey just withdrew, accusing everyone else. Within weeks, the shop announced insolvency, its entrances secured permanently. Nathan composed, "They're disintegrating without you." I didn't respond. Their defeat wasn't my load any longer. In Asheville, I commenced anew. I accepted independent marketing assignments, minor tasks for nearby outlets, creating promotions for Java roasters and stores. The labor was consistent, my abilities keen from years of striving. I remained solitary, initially cautious of fresh visages, but the town's cordiality drew me in. One dawn, I strolled into a pastry shop centrally, attracted by the aroma of new loaves. Shirley Bennett, the pastry shop proprietor, welcomed me with a broad grin. She was in her 50s, her cover sprinkled with powder, her chuckle resonant enough to occupy the space. "You appear recent here," she stated, pushing a complimentary pastry across the surface. We began conversing. I informed her I'd recently relocated, omitting the chaotic particulars. Shirley didn't probe, just recounted tales of her own. How she'd initiated the pastry shop following a separation, reconstructing from zero. Takes courage to commence over, she stated, her gazes compassionate. She welcomed me to a nearby commerce gathering, presenting me to outlet proprietors who required promotional assistance. I obtained 2 customers that week courtesy of her. Shirley became a consistent element of my day's brew at her pastry shop discussions about existence, her consistent existence stabilizing me. I didn't receive from Joyce or Jeffrey. Brent dispatched one furious correspondence charging me of sinking the kin operation. You're self-centered, he composed as if I hadn't sustained it for years. I erased it without replying. Lindsay remained mute, likely ensnared in Brent's fear. I considered Nathan's statements from Erie. You're tougher than they realize. He was accurate. In Asheville, I wasn't the silhouette I'd been in Erie. I was constructing something fresh. Customers' links, an existence that sensed mine. One dusk, Shirley welcomed me to her pastry shop post-hours. We positioned with cups of infusion, the scent of spiced buns persisting. You appear altered, she stated. Settling in, I assented, comprehending I hadn't considered Erie in days. For the initial occasion, I sensed relieved, like I could inhale without bearing their anticipations. Asheville was my new commencement, and with Shirley Shelp, I was discovering my spot. I wasn't glancing rearward. Months subsequently, Asheville had turned my refuge. But the consequences from Erie still undulated. The kin food shop, once the core of my parents' realm, was absent. Its closed panes, an emblem of their disintegration. Joyce and Jeffrey confronted a severe new actuality. Their reserves decreased, compelling them to dispose of their residence and relocate into a confined residence on the boundary of Erie. Locals who once saluted them cordially now evaded their look, their standing sullied by the shop's downfall. Brent Farrett no superior. His allure, once adequate to gain him benefits, couldn't conceal his mishandling. He'd accepted a position at a tool outlet, but shoppers murmured about his part in the household's decline. His haughtiness, no longer holding significance. Lindsay, his betrothed, shifted away their commitment, softly dissolving amid the pressure. The existence they constructed on lone splendor had collapsed. I didn't linger on their difficulties. Asheville was me concentration, a location where I could reconstruct without their silhouettes. My independent marketing operation was establishing. I'd obtained agreements with 5 nearby operations: a ale house, a volume store, and craft display, a eatery, and a trekking equipment outlet. My days were occupied with crafting emblems, composing promotion text, and presenting initiatives over brew in lively central eateries. My earnings lingered around $3,000 monthly, sufficient for my humble residence provisions and sporadic indulgences, like a performance pass or a fresh set of trekking footwear. Each venture sensed like a component in the base of existence I was shaping for myself. Nathan stayed a consistent existence, even from distances away. He'd phone every several weeks, his tone cordial over the snapping connection. Erie is not the identical without you, he stated once, then chuckled. But you're dominating it out there. He dispatched images of his recent timber crafting venture, minor symbols that sustained our companionship. His motivation recalled me of the power I'd overlooked I possessed. Shirley, the pastry shop proprietor, was my stabilizer in Asheville. Her outlet with its comfortable timber surfaces and aroma of new confections was where I'd generate concepts or relax after extended days. She'd provide me a complimentary bun stating, "Energy for the effort." Her faith in me, straightforward, steadfast, assisted me view myself as more than the offspring who'd never sufficed. Then arrived Joyce's correspondence. It reached one crisp dawn, her script unsteady on the cover. She asserted she'd been identified with a grave ailment, pleading me to return to Erie to assist her and Jeffrey reconstruct. The terms were laden with remorse, depicting me as the essential to their rescue. I perused it twice, missed a type. Shirley, cleaning her surface, observed my expression and inquired what was amiss. I passed her the correspondence. She examined it, her forehead creasing. This reeks of control, she stated, discarding it. Folks don't transform instantly. Her directness sliced through my uncertainty. I'd witnessed Joyce's methods, previously employing sympathy to manipulate chords. Nathan, when I phoned him, concurred. She's attempting to pull you back, he stated. Don't succumb to it. I didn't. I composed one response, brief and conclusive. I desire you well, but I'm not returning. I sent it and obstructed their contacts. Severing them wasn't simple. Portion of me still yearned for the household I desired them to be, but I knew remaining connected to their disorder would only deteriorate the tranquility I'd discovered. Shirley assented when he informed her eyes proud. You're selecting you, she stated, providing me brew. That's the toughest, boldest thing. Nathan resounded her in his subsequent phone, stating, You're liberated now. Don't glance back. Their backing, consistent and genuine, provided me the bravery to release. In Asheville, I was constructing more than a profession. I entered a nearby trekking assembly, journeying paths like Black Balsam Knob, where the peaks extended boundless and untamed. I commenced illustrating again, a pursuit I'd forsaken in Erie, populating drawing pads with aqueous hues vistas. My residence became a dwelling flora on the ledge, a carpet from a nearby bazaar, a rack of volumes I actually had occasion to peruse. I obtained a major agreement with the Area Visitor Council, a half-year drive that multiplied my earnings. The labor was demanding, but every delayed evening devoted adjusting phrases sensed like evidence of my merit. One dusk at Shirley's pastry shop, I positioned with her and a few of her regulars chuckling over tales of Asheville's eccentric celebrations. A customer visited thanking me for a drive that had increased his outlet traffic. I grinned, sensing a cordiality I hadn't experienced in Erie. The instruction was absorbing my worth wasn't linked to what I did for Joyce, Jeffrey, or Brent. It was in the existence I was generating. The customers who relied on me, the companions who elevated me, the subdued instance where he sensed complete. Asheville wasn't merely a new commencement. It was where I mastered to tall. Not for anyone else, but